Hi there, welcome to the session. This is the end-to-end intelligent automation with Power Platform. My name is Ashwini Sharma. I'm a program manager on the Power Automate team.
And I am Benoit Fab. I'll be presenting our Invoice Starter Kit, and I'm a PM on the Power Automate team as well.
Well, the agenda we have for the session today is one where we'll do very briefly, we'll cover the holistic automation platform. What is our story for Power Platform and Power Automate? Then we'll take two scenarios. One of them is going to be a simple end-to-end invoice example where we'll see from scratch how do you build your simplest invoice processing directly in Power Automate. And then Benoit is going to, as you mentioned, he's going to go through and build a more richer solution with a starter kit that allows you to customize it much more significantly. And then we'll close with a roadmap across Power Automate. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about the holistic automation platform. When we speak with customers, we usually hear about three classes of problems or three classes of needs of automation that they wrestle with. The first one is around document processing, and this is where they're spending a lot of their time extracting data from invoices, extracting data from documents, and really the people are spending a lot of time doing tedious, mundane tasks. The second one we hear from customers about are modern applications and services where they've invested a lot on modernizing their systems and they want to orchestrate automation across those systems. And finally, there are a lot of customers that have applications that are working just fine, but they were built at a time without APIs, without the thought of automation on top of the application. And the only way to automate them is through pretending to be a human that mimics human behavior. And usually it's not just one of these scenarios. Usually customers have a mixture of them. Microsoft ourselves have, for all the orders we get from our customers that come in through faxes, through phone calls, through web portals, through emails and PDF documents, we use a mixture of these techniques ourselves to go through and process these, to automate these business processes. So the view of Power Automate is there should be one holistic end-to-end platform that spans all these needs and provides you out-of-the-box capabilities for solving these automation needs. So on the left too, you see first AI Builder. AI Builder is a component of the Power Platform, and it's designed to really have AI applied to these business problems of being able to extract structure from unstructured content. The second is over 350 different connectors that exist with inside Power Automate to be able to connect to Microsoft and non-Microsoft services. In fact, a quarter of the customers for Power Automate use Power Automate with non-Microsoft services. You can also define your own custom connectors as well, and whether they connect to on-premises data or data in the cloud, you can directly plug them in directly into the automation fabric as well. And finally, the RPA or UI automation. This is intended to automate applications that have no APIs, and the only way to automate them is by mimicking human behavior. And Power Automate is a holistic end-to-end automation platform that allows you to mix and match these techniques into solving your business needs. To showcase what Power Automate can do, let's take a specific example of invoice processing. And this is a very common scenario that most customers have, where you get emails that contain attachments of invoices, and really somebody has to extract the data out of those invoices and enter them into the system. For this example, what we'll do is there'll be an email that will get sent with an invoice. We will use AI Builder capability to be able to extract data from that invoice. We'll send a notification on to Teams to have somebody make a decision on whether they want to approve or reject this invoice. And finally, the last step, if it's approved for the if the invoice is approved, we'll go through and enter all this data into a legacy application that has no APIs. Here, what you'll see is APIs and AI, the approval in Teams of human in the loop. And that's a really key part of the automation platform because you can offload the mundane and the tedious tasks, but you really want to tap into the unique human value, decision making, creativity, strategic thinking This is all what you need. Emotional intelligence. You need all that to be able to plug in directly into your automation platform as well. And in my case, maybe I do approvals on Monday morning or Monday afternoon, and the system should be waiting for me. As soon as I make the decision, then continue on. So really the seamless integration between the human and the system working together is a key part of the automation platform itself. Finally, once I say yes, go ahead and approve, then I want to go ahead and do UI automation to enter this data into my application. So let's go through how to build this scenario. Here I am inside Power Automate. That gives me lots of templates to get started from, as well as a list of all the connectors, of the 375 different connectors that I can get started with. In our case, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new flow. To do that, I'll go to Create and create an automated flow. Now, there are different ways I could create a flow, including an instant flow, scheduled flow, etc. In this case, we will just create a flow that gets triggered based on an event. In fact, those events could be coming from any of those 375 connectors or any custom connector. And here, what I could say is when a new email shows up, I want this flow to be triggered. Let's call this Contoso Invoices. Now, when a new email arrives, I want this flow to execute. This is the beginning of any flow, which is the notion of a trigger. In this case, this is an event-based trigger. Now, I don't want it on all the emails. I want to specify some filters that only trigger this flow whenever these conditions are met. In fact, I want this trigger to execute only if there is an attachment in the email. I can also give it a subject filter to say only trigger this flow whenever there's an invoice in the title. That's it. Now, this flow will trigger anytime there's an email that contains invoice in the title and has an attachment. The next thing I want to do is go on and extract the invoice from the email and send it over to AI Builder for it to extract the contents of the form. Now, AI Builder provides out-of-the-box experiences for creating AI models for different business needs. It could be category classification, entity extraction from different documents, forms processing, this is the one we're going to use, etc. And there are many available out of the box directly. Let's use forms processing. The first thing I need to do is specify the name of this model. Next, AI Builder walks me through the set of steps that are necessary for me to initialize that model. And the way I do that is to add documents, which are sample documents I can upload from my machine. Here are those 5 documents. And all I need to do is upload those documents to the service. Once those documents have been uploaded, I can ask the system to analyze the contents of these documents. As it's doing content analysis, it's looking at the overall structure, it's detecting fields, and is extracting field values from that structure. Now the analysis is complete. So here, what you see is the model behind AI Builder is sophisticated enough to pick out key value pairs, for example, this invoice, as well as tables. So it uses OCR and structured understanding to be able to extract tabular information. So very quickly, I'm going to select all the fields, and I'm going to unselect a few fields that I don't want. I can also go ahead and do custom tagging for different regions and give these different names. But in my case, I'm just going to leave the defaults. The next step I need to go through is ask the model to be trained. Once the training is complete, all I need to do is publish this model, which will make it available for me to embed inside my automations or my applications. There we go. Now let's use this intelligence that's locked up inside this AI Builder model from my automation. Here we are back in Flow, and I can take a look at all the AI Builder models I have access to. In this case, there's one that I just created called Contoso Invoices. This action can take different types of documents. In my case, I'll be sending in PDF just for the sake of this demo. So let's select that. Now the next field will be what is the document I want to send over to AI Builder for it to extract from. And in our case, that will be the attachment that's coming down from the trigger. And what you'll notice is as soon as I click attachment contents, the flow designer is going to recognize that there could in fact be multiple attachments in an email and automatically give me a loop that loops through all of those attachments that are coming from an email. And for each one of those attachments, it will push that attachment over to AI Builder and extract the contents from those documents. The next thing I want to do is have the contents of this extraction be sent over to a Teams channel for a human to make a call on whether to approve this processing of the invoice or not. And the way I do that is just like I do with any other connector. Inside Power Automate, I'll look for Teams. In this case, I'll post a choice of options to the user. The first option is going to be whether you want to approve, next reject, and finally process manually. I'll give it some text for the message itself. Now in this case, I have the power of AI at my fingertips, and I can use the fields that AI Builder has extracted from the invoice and feed it in directly to the Teams message. And the way I do that is simply to look at the dynamic content that's coming from the previous steps or from the output of AI Builder and use the fields. That's it. I've now just configured a message to be sent to Teams. Now the output of this Teams call will be a response that I receive back from the user. And in this case, Flow allows me to build a switch that I could use for determining which path do I take next. Let's take a look at the approved case. Now in this case, I want to enter this data into an application that has no APIs. And to do that, I'll use a feature in Power Automate called UI Flows. Now in this case, let's go ahead and create a very simple UI flow. Here, the Power Automate desktop launches that allows me to create automation directly on my desktop. Power Automate Desktop is an evolution of the Win Automation product. And as you can see on the left-hand side on the toolbox, you have a variety of different actions available for you to do UI automation on different applications, web automations on different browsers, terminal emulations, etc. I could drag and drop controls directly onto the canvas, but in our case, I'll go ahead and launch the recorder to record the activities of the user. I can now start recording my application. Once done, I can go take a look at the recording itself. Now in this case, I want to use dynamic variables that I can feed in later on at runtime. The way I do that is by creating the notion of an input variable. I'm going to create the first one, which is called invoice contact. Give it a sample value. Format the external name and the description. I've created my first input variable, and I'll create 3 more. Now that I've defined the input variable, I'm going to use these instead of the hard-coded values per action. And I'll do this for the rest of the actions as well. And finally, I'm going to introduce the action to run the application, which is the invoice processing app. There are many options available for each of these actions, including wait for application to load, and in all the actions, you also have ability to specify on error handling. In this case, I can specify various error handling specific to this type of actions. All I need to do at this point is save this script directly up to the Power Automate service. Once the script is saved, I'm back here in the Power Automate service where I can see all the 4 input variables that I've specified are now available for me as placeholders I can pass in to this action to execute the UI flow. In addition, I can also select whether I want this automation to run in an attended mode or unattended. In this case, I'm going to select attended. And now I will feed in the data I've been extracted from the AI builder model again. That's all. I've built my end-to-end invoice processing flow. Let's go through and give it a whirl. This is the invoice I'll be emailing over to that mailbox. Let's go ahead and send the mail. And when I switch to flow, very shortly, you'll see a message from the Power Automate service that contains data that's been extracted using AI Builder. Here's that message, and all I need to do is make a decision on this. In this case, I'll select approve and submit. Now, in my case, we have wired this up for us to demonstrate how attended automation would work on my machine. Of course, in the usual scenario, I will probably have a separate machine that is getting invoked on an unattended basis. But here what we'll see is very shortly, this application has launched, and it's now passing in all the information that's been extracted by the invoice, and that's it. What you see in this flow is an end-to-end holistic automation platform that allows you to call APIs to wait for emails, AI to process the invoices, route a message to the Teams user for them to make a decision, and then once they've decided, to launch RPA or UI automation to be able to enter all that information into an application that has no APIs. That was a quick walkthrough through the invoice processing example. Now I'll hand over to Benoit to go through the invoice processing starter kit. Benoit?
As we've seen, Power Automate provides everything that you need to automate the processing of documents. To facilitate the initial design and implementation of such an end-to-end solution, the Invoice Processing Automation Starter Kit provides a reference implementation for processing invoices at scale. It is available for free on AppSource and GitHub. This starter kit includes 3 main steps. It includes an invoice listening flow that will capture invoices received from emails and store the invoice document in the Common Data Service. The Common Data Service is used to manage the queue of invoices and data extracted. Invoices received are processed automatically by the AI model that corresponds to the provider of the invoice, and the data extracted is stored in CDS so that it can be reviewed and approved by the validation station. The validation station is an application that enables users in your organization to monitor your invoice pipeline and approve invoices. Let's take a closer look at those different steps. The invoice listening flow captures invoice document received in emails and extracts relevant metadata about this invoice. When a new invoice email is received, this flow saves the invoice document in CDS, and it also extracts the name of the provider based on the sender address. When receiving invoices from many different providers, you often need to assign invoices to different teams, based on the provider's name or its country. This starter kit manages this complexity and enables you to create different teams based on countries or a list of providers. This flow will then automatically assign the invoice to the appropriate team so that only this team can see and validate this invoice in the validation station. Let's now take a look at the processing flow that will use AI models to automatically extract data from your invoices. CDS is used to store invoice documents, manage a queue of invoices to be processed and validated, and save data extracted. When dealing with many different providers who all have different invoice document templates, you need to train in AI Builder many different models to address those different document templates. The starter kit will maintain this provider to AI model relationship and automatically call the right model when processing an invoice. The data extracted is stored back in CDS and assigned to the right team who is in charge of reviewing and validating this invoice in the validation station. Let's now take a look at the validation station, the last component of this starter kit. The validation station is a Power App that enables members of your team to visualize the invoice queue and validate data extracted. When an invoice has been processed, you can visualize the invoice together with the data extracted. When you open an invoice, it will automatically assign it to you to avoid having other people opening and validating that same invoice. If a part of the data extracted automatically by the AI model is false or missing, the user can manually fix the problem and enter the correct value before validating the invoice. The validation station shows you all invoices. You can filter on invoices that were just received by your import flow, on invoices that were processed and are ready to be reviewed, or on invoices that were validated and are ready to be exported. You can also see if there are new providers that have to be configured in your system or errors. This validation station enables you to keep people in the loop. If you'd like, you can configure the system to skip this manual validation for certain invoices based, for example, on the confidence score of the data extracted. This invoice automation starter kit provides a complete solution that leverages the power of AI to automate the process while keeping humans in the loop to perform critical actions. This starter kit is available for free now on AppSource and GitHub.
Thank you, Benoit, for that overview of the invoice processing starter kit. Let's talk about the availability of these features. First of all, today already you have availability of Win Automation features if you're a Power Automate attended RPA licensed user or a trial user. And with Win Automation, you can cover advanced UI automation scenarios directly right away. And in fact, you can integrate those automation scenarios with UI flows as well. So with UI flows, you can execute Win Automation processes in either attended or unattended right away. At Ignite, what we are announcing is the preview, a public preview of the tool called Power Automate Desktop. And with Power Automate Desktop, which is an evolution of the Win Automation tool, Power Automate Desktop integrates natively with the Power Automate service, and you have centralized scripts and centralized execution logs as a part of using Power Automate Desktop. Now, with that centralization, we're also looking to build centralized logs for management, a centralized control center for management, governance, and reporting of these scripts that you define with Power Automate Desktop. And in the future, we'll look to bring on-demand scalability for dynamic workloads. So there are many customers that have, maybe end of the month or end of the quarter, they have a lot of spike in demand. And what we're looking to build in the future is to be able to allow customers to dynamically scale up the RPA capacity and then scale back down whenever you're done. For Power Automate All Up, well, we're investing to build a single platform for everyone to be more productive with automation. And I'll take a couple of minutes to go through these different pillars of investment. First of all is, you've already seen this with the invoice processing demo, the seamless fusion of API and UI and AI-based automation, and we'll continue to make that more seamless as we go forward. The second is contextual experiences in Office applications. If you're using SharePoint today, if you're using Excel, you're using OneDrive already, you are used to having an experience of Power Automate directly embedded within those experiences. Well, we're taking that to the next level with integration into Teams and integration with SharePoint. So for example, in SharePoint, part of what another announcement today is a project codename Project Cortex that allows you to define AI builder models associated with document libraries so that whenever new documents are added to those libraries, AI builder can automatically extract content from those documents and add them into columns in the SharePoint list. The third one is seamless connectivity with Azure services. So this, if you are an Azure user, then being able to just very quick on-ramp into Power Automate, that's continued to be an area of investment for us. The third one, I talked about richer common administration and governance capabilities. As the enterprise RPA platform, we will continue to invest in this significantly over the next few months. And then Power Apps. One of the beauty of the Power Platform is the integration between Power Apps and Power Automate Power BI and Power Automate, and Virtual Chat and Power Automate. And specifically for Power Apps and Power Automate, there is a lot of work that we can do to further simplify just the integration between the two products. And that's what we look forward to doing. And for everyone to be more productive with automation, whether you are just starting out with automation or you are a developer that is used to DevOps practices, or you want to embed AI directly into your automation, these are areas that we'll continue to invest in as well. For resources, there's a very thriving community for Power Automate available. We hang out there all the time. We welcome you, welcome your feedback on there. Power Automate blog is a great resource for you to get familiar with what is there in the product today, to keep up with news announcements. So announcement, for example, for Ignite announce, or new functionality that will deliver for AI or APIs or UI will be announced there, including new connectors as well. There is also there are a lot of channels on YouTube for you to be able to just read up on what's possible with Power Automate today. And finally, there's a roadmap, a public roadmap available for longer term, what we're doing over the next 6 months for the Power Automate product, and we welcome you to check that out. Well, with that, we hope this session was useful for you, and we really want to thank you for your time. Thanks a lot.